Okay, and Linda, I think you just put this. Sorry, so everyone's on mute, so you can all hear me, right?
We can hear you.
So
I
good,
can unmute
good,
if you
good.
need to.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Feel free to interrupt me at any point during all this stuff. I might not be able to really see the chat too well, so just like barge in. It's like whatever. This is all. I don't want to say it's unscripted. It is scripted, but it's not like we could diverge, right? So it's not too tight. Yeah, so I'm Mike DeMaria. I work for a company called Equitable. It's a financial services company. We do like retirements and investments and all that. My company, we have, I think, 5 production orgs currently. I usually live in the biggest of our 5. Our org has about 4,500 users, give or take. We have about 60 or 70 million records in there. 7 million accounts, 1 million opportunities, 40 million tasks. Relatively big org. It was created, I think, 12 years ago, give or take. I came in 2015. So I came in a couple of years after it was implemented. The org is very mixed between code and flows. We're trying to do more and more stuff with flows, but we do have this joint thing where we have a lot of Apex going on, we have flows going on, and so we're kind of in a giant mess. And as I was going through and using flows and doing stuff, one of the things I've found was, as a developer, it's really easy to figure out the state of a system as it's going. You could just throw debug statements in wherever you want in your code. You could say debug point A, point B, point C. You could output the variable names, and you could do all sorts of really cool stuff with debugs. Flows didn't have that, and flows kind of still don't have that. There is a debug button on a flow where you can see it step by step, and that's okay. That's all right. But what happens if you have, let's say, record triggered flow, and you're editing 2 or 3 records, and you find issues where it happens when you do bulk actions? What if you have a platform event? Or maybe a subflow where like you can't see into like other flows that are being triggered off through your automations. How do you get data out of that to figure out what's going on? And how do you do it in even real time or in production? Maybe it doesn't happen for you. Maybe it happens as another user, and so you want to create a debug log for a certain user. The stuff built in kind of doesn't really handle that too well. And so what I figured is, okay, what if we could print debug statements from within a flow? And so that's really what this utility is for. So let me start sharing my screen. So here is the utility. You can go to syracusedevelopers.com/FlowDebug. I will paste that into the chat now so you can follow along. Yes, we have our own domain name, because why not? So I can't see the chat right now. It's completely hidden. So please interrupt me, if anything, if you need anything.
Sure thing. And I'll be reading the chat. If you don't want to interrupt Mike, you can write in the chat your question, and I'll interrupt him for you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Because like the camera's here. I'm only to share screen 1. I can't see it. Anyways, so this page has a whole bunch of info of how to use this thing, how to install it. He said, I try to make it very friendly. I kind of intended this really to be utility for admins, but I find as a developer, it is very handy for me as well. But I did want to make this something that could be at least accessible to an admin. So here's all the info that you have. If you want to install this thing, there's 2 ways. One of them is it's an unmanaged package, so you could just install it by literally putting this into this entire line right in here in your playground. You can just do that, hit return, and it installs. If you really want to see what's going on, there is a link right here for the metadata. It's a zip file that basically contains 2 Apex classes. That's it. That's all this is. It's just one invocable Apex class and a test class you could deploy to production. Heck, I even give you the command line to do it if you use this, the Salesforce CLI. So let's see this actually in action.
Hey, Mike,
Yeah.
I am going to interrupt. I don't know if for other people, as far as the clarity of your screen that you're sharing, like you in your house, you look very clear and crystally, but as far as the resolution on like the screen. I don't
Is
know
it
if it's
really
the setting
bad?
on you guys or on Lynn's setting or whatnot, but just wanted to kind of pump the brakes and see if other people are seeing that same thing. Orlando, are you able to see the clarity of like the words? Like,
Let me put that over there. Put that over there.
It
Let's
is
see what it
blurry.
looks like.
It's not that
Okay.
it's small, but it's blurry.
How about if I zoom in a bit? Is that a little bit better?
yes, it's better. It's still not like as crystally. It's almost like a YouTube video when it's like you can
Maybe
adjust
try
the quality of
resharing
it.
again.
I just wanted to make sure other people, if it's just me, it's fine, but I didn't know if other people were seeing the same type of like haziness.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, it's
blurry as
definitely
well.
clearer when you're zooming in.
Yeah,
Just
I'll
not
try to
sure
keep
what
it.
end to do it off. I just wanted to voice that.
Okay, I'll try to keep it zoomed in a little bit more like this, which
That's
hopefully
much
won't get too sickening and obnoxious. But I'm going to zoom in and out then as we go to show important stuff.
Thank you, Mike.
Sure. Yeah, no, thanks for letting me know. So let's start with what I have here. So I've created, for lack of a better term, a very contrived example here, just so that we can actually see some of this in action. So what I have is I have a custom object called FlowTest, and we got a pick list field called type. And then when I save that, what this does is this fires off a platform event, and a platform event will go find that record and update this next action field based on whatever type was selected. So a little contrived, but you can imagine this being just like an asynchronous process that you might do. And part of this is so that we can really show that you can't debug this through the debug logs. So I'm going to hit save, and it's going to fire off. I'm going to refresh the screen. And since this is a platform event, this might take a second to load in. In fact, let me check to make sure my flow is active as well. Just in case, because I did set this up before. So we got this. Oh, it's not. My flow's not active. Well, that would affect that. All right. Now the flow's active. Now let's go edit this. Come on. So next action, it says I have no idea. Type is neither A nor B, and the type is clearly B. So it's like, oh, well, that's a problem. What if I set that to A and I set this to A? What happens now? I'm going to save that, and oh, gee, now not only does it do that, now the type here, I set this to A before. Now it's something set it to B. So what the hell happened? But that only happened. Let's see if I do it now with just a single record. Is that going to do that? Let's see. I'm not sure. Oh, no, it set it to B as well. That's weird. So let's figure out what's going on. You know, if I go into my flow, I have a very simple flow here. All it does is it literally starts up, fires off a platform event. That's all it is. It's just a platform event. And if I hit the debug button, and let's see what debug does. So I'm going to say, let's debug this. I'm going to hit run. Oh, that's not too helpful, is it? The platform event fires, and now I can't do anything. I can't debug it. I'm hosed. So let's start investigating. Let's add some debug options. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, all right, let's see what the state of things are going into this. So I'm going to hit the add element. And this is the new utility. Just create a debug log entry. And so this is what we could send with this. There's a log prefix, a show governor limits, and the statement. And I'm going to choose to include these. So log prefix, these could be anything. So I'm going to take the record ID. I'll explain what log prefix is in a moment. I'm going to say the value of type is record.type_C. And this show governor list, I'm going to say true. We're going to save this, save it, activate it. Flow's active. Okay. So now what do we do with that info? What do we do? Well, now we'll just kick off a flow again. I'm going to go, I'm going to edit this. I'm going to say it's type to be. Save it. And now I'm going to open my dev console. And I have a debug entry here. So these are all the statements that have come from that one little thing we added to the log. I can see here the value of type is B. So going into that flow, I know this value is set correctly. I can see into it. You can also see I printed out these limits. This is something that the debug thing doesn't let you do. You can put in and see your limits anywhere you want using this utility. So like, let's say you have a couple of SOQL queries, you have a couple of get elements over here, you have a couple of updates over there. Maybe you do the really naughty thing and put, let's say, a DML operation inside a loop. You could see how close you're going to the limits of these things every time it goes through the loop, which is really handy in bulk transactions, because you're going to see it in bulk. You can see multiple entries. You can see where things are. You don't have to wait till the end like the debug thing, the normal FlowDebug does. You can put it, literally plop it anywhere. I'm going to edit 2 of these. I'm going to edit A, and I'm going to set these both to A, and we'll see what happens. I'm going to hit save. And I'm going to open my debug log. I'm going to hit debug. And here's my debug entries. And then I notice this here. You see this line says trigger hack set type C to B. This is coming from an Apex trigger. So my Apex trigger is sitting right over here. And some developer did something really naughty. They did a trigger new, bracket 1. So this will only fire off when doing something on multiple operations at once. So this is a particular bug, and yeah, it's obvious here, but hey, let's face it, most of the time bugs are not obvious. This is a bug that only is going to happen in a bulk operation, not an individual one-by-one operation, which is something that the default debug, the flow debugger can't find and can't see. So this is why things are getting reset, because of this stupid trigger in here. And because I'm able to combine these things, I could see when they're occurring and where they're occurring. Now, here's the other reason that I put that thing called what I call prefix. I put the record ID in the prefix so that I can search on just that prefix there. If I filter, I put down here in the filter the record ID. Now I get just the outputs for that record ID. And so one of the things that I do with this is, let's say you wanted to have a lot of debug statements. Let's say you wanted to put, 10 debug statements inside this thing. The prefix, instead of it being just static text, maybe you create like a formula field, or you create, literally a resource. We could select a variable formula, and then we could have, some sort of formula here that you could use for searching operations, so that you can more easily search a log file, and then just use this one formula here, and have that be static throughout your entire flow. So if I have like 6 different debugs, I could have this all specified here and put that in the log prefix, and I don't have to remember, oh, I have to put the record ID inside my statement down here. It basically concatenates whatever's in here, in the prefix with whatever's in the statement to make it easy to find both. So now we see it gets fired off correctly. What about the platform event? What do we do there? Something's going wrong there. So let's go into the platform event flow. While I'm at it, I'm going to take out this stupid trigger thing, because we know that this trigger, some developer screwed up on that. So I'm just going to disable that trigger for now. And flows. Here's the set next action flow. I'm going to open it up. So here's my get next action, where I get the related records, I do something, I make a decision based on whatever the output of a variable in the flow is. So this is a flow variable. This record type value. So let's see what that value actually is. I'm going to do a debug statement right in the middle here. And we're going to include that formula. I'm going to put a little prefix here so I could find this easily. So I'm going to see what this thing actually is. I'm going to hit done. I'm going to hit save, activate. Now, small problem if you've never done platform events. Platform events don't run as the user. Things that listen for platform events don't run as the user that's running the process. They run as the automated user. So you have to actually set up a different debug entry. This will not come under my name. If I do a debug log, I won't see anything. You actually have to go in and set a debug entry and entity type. Automated process. That's what this is used for. And save. So now let's fire off. Now I'm going to go here. I'm going to edit this record. I'm going to hit save. And now I'm going to go look at my debug log entries. And I have one created right now. Let's take a look at it. I'm going to search for my name.
Thanks for keep zooming in, Mike. But
Sure.
yeah, could you zoom in some more? Thanks.
Sure. So I have found here's my debug log. Here's my entry that I just created. And you see it says unknown. So the value of that formula, that value of, let me go back in my flow. This decision element is making a decision based on the value of this resource, this variable. And let's take a look what that variable is. So I'm going to find, where are my formulas, the record type value. So here is, and now this is the formula I'm using, and I see the problem. I'm looking for a lowercase letter, but the value in the record is capital. So that's where my bug is. This should be capitalized. And that's why it's failing. But I could see this simple case statement here, I was able to whittle it down to know, like, this is where my problem is. So now if I save that, and I save this, and I save it, and I activate it again, hopefully now it actually goes and actually works. We actually get the correct values on these things. Save it. And now I get the correct values. Guide for A, guide for B. And so I can sprinkle these in wherever I want. You can sprinkle in these all these little things, these little debug statements. If I want to see what was going on over here, I could add one here that says just something as simple as, what should I say? Just like a developer would, just like a developer would when we do, you can a debug fine. When we have like if statements, and you're like, what's going on? What part of this if then statement was actually executed? We can just put things in each section. I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy this, I'm going to place it over here, and I'm going to edit that to say reach decision point for B. And so then when my event goes through, it will flow through and I'll be able to see, oh, this record went to here, this one went over there, this went to this other place. And I could put it at the end here just to say that I reached the point in the flow. If you run into governor limits, you know how normally the flows would just bomb out and die. The debug logs are being created. So if, let's say that this was in a loop, I could keep seeing and I could get these debug statements as the flow is going up until the point of the actual flow failure. It doesn't roll back anything like a normal CPU timeout or a software query timeout or any of the things that cause a flow to literally abort out and die completely. We can get debug log statements in there so that we can just keep going and figure out where something actually happened. There are two major limitations on this, though, or one major, one minor. One of them is we can't use this utility on before save record triggered flows. So those fast field update flows, they can't do invocable Apex actions, so we can't do it there, which kind of sucks. Every other type of flow is open and fair game. Everything but those before saves. Fortunately, before saves, you can only get into so much trouble on them because they could do so relatively little. The other downside is that these things will fire off every single time, regardless of your debug settings. So there is no real concept here of don't invoke this piece of Apex if I'm not in debug mode. There's no real on and off. It's going to call this invocable Apex action. Might have a small impact on performance, probably extremely little. But it's just something to consider that it is calling an invocable Apex action that's going to go off, and all the invocable Apex does is print out the debug statement and returns nothing, and just returns. So if you want, you could have decision elements in here and use something else to say, I want to log a debug action. Maybe create a custom metadata type, record or something that says debug on or debug off, or a little more granular than that. It doesn't have to be just true false. You could have different levels of debug, and do maybe a query for that, or use a decision element to say, do I want to output a debug entry for this or not? So that's the majority of this piece. So I'll start to open this up to questions right now.
So feel free to share in chat or to unmute yourself if you have any questions. So my guess would be, your recommendation would be to use these while you're testing and not when you're ready to go live with something?
I would use them when testing for sure. If you need them, just like any debug stuff, right? So like if you need them, when you don't need them, you could blow them away. In some ways, these are very handy in production if you have weird issues that are hard to replicate or you can't replicate it in the test environment. All this flow literally is doing, you can see here, this is the entire action. All it does has is an if statement, and a system debug and another if statement, that's it. Like, it's not touching anything. So this is relatively safe to throw into a flow that's in prod. So, usually I wouldn't put these debug statements into prod because I don't find them necessary at that point. I find them more for troubleshooting an issue. But if you really want to, yeah, you could leave these in prod if you really want. And then, like, if some of these limits, if you really don't care about some of them at all, like, let's say you really don't care about heap size at all, well, fine, just delete out the code and save it. You have access to the source code, so you can change this however you want. If you can think of other things that you can query for limits on, yeah, throw it in there too. Doesn't matter. Hey, it's your code. And aside from that, you have a full, everything else, all the stuff is explained on the site, of how to use it, so you don't have to even refer to this, this recording. You could just go to the page, find it, shows you all the stuff, what everything means, all the info is here, how to get to the debug logs, and what these different governor limit things mean. So All that info is right there, really quick and easy to get to, and uninstalling it's easy as well. It's literally just 2 Apex classes, and that's it.
Yes, look, seems pretty handy. I'm very curious about the process of how do you publish the unmanaged package. Never done that. That's interesting.
Oh, okay. So to publish it, this is all you have to do. If you're in a Trailhead playground, package manager. You see package manager here? Click on package manager, and then just like you got to pretend this is a change set. There are these packages. You create a new package and you put stuff in it. So here's one of my packages. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. You can hit the add button. You add your components. It does a full dependency check on these things. So you can add your Apex classes. You can add whatever you want. And then any required dependency gets pulled automatically into this package. Like you can't control it. You know, in change sets, how you have that little button that says like show dependent components or show related components, and it pulls in like everything. This is going to pull everything in automatically. And when you're done with all that, when you get all your stuff in, you click the upload button. And once you click the upload button, there's going to be a it's going to return a package ID, and that's it. And then it's uploaded, and you could distribute that to whoever you want.
Very cool. Thanks. I'll try it when when I have something
Sure.
worth sharing.
Yeah, and like when I do stuff, you see here, like here's the the version names, whatever, the region, da. If you really want to put a password on it, you can. I use this every so often. I will use this and generate the package. You see, there's a whole bunch of crap in here, right? I will generate these packages whenever I do like presentation for a I should say a lot of times when I do presentations. What I will do is I will use those packages and then use SFDX to get the metadata out of my my Trailhead org. But if you hit the upload button, it makes it really easy to distribute the code to other people, especially for people who don't have access to a full development environment. Let's say if you want something for admins, especially, because they're not going to have VS Code, probably. They're not going to have the CLI and all that stuff. You just create a little package and it's like, here's the metadata, go nuts. Which makes it really handy for these little events, like, little events and things like community group meetups, where it's just like, here, take this link and go play with it. Here it is. You could have it. It's easier than trying to set up a GitHub and download all the data. It's just like, here's a link to a package, you're done. So it's I find it extremely useful, just even just when showing off stuff,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So Mike, thank you. I'm going to turn off recording. We can still do more questions and stuff if we have them, but I just want to get that part done with because the presentation has been shared.